And this is an interesting part of the painting, and it's one that I don't get to that often in front of people. But what I'm going to do is start to pull a little bit of this color into this wedge, and a little bit of this color into this wedge, and a little bit of this color into this wedge. So things aren't quite so separated. That means taking a little bit of that light pinkish sky color and just putting it into the areas of the tree, just to unify these shapes a little bit. And this is part of the jewelry. This is part of the fun. So I'll be able to pull some of that in, be able to pull some of this sky blue down into these areas. And so it's this blue, this ultramarine, that I'm pulling into the next wedge, maybe back under here. It's some of that fallow. From down here, I'm pulling into this wedge. And I'm using the blues on the shadowed side and the lighter colors on the sunlit side, so I'm able to pull some shadow, some fallow into here. I'm able to pull some of that some of that orange and pink from the sky into this area. That's a little intense, so I'll lighten it up a bit. And if I don't quite line up, that's all right. I'll just make a bigger tree. And you notice I'm not staying in one area when I do this. It just tends to, you tend to overwork it if you stay in one area. So I'm just sort of moving about and seeing if I can't. Now, for some reason, I'm not going to bounce this color back up into the water. I mean, I can right here at the base, at these shadows. I can bounce some of this purples back up like a local color. I could probably get away with a bounce from here to here. Maybe, I don't know. But there's no way I can get that purple up this far. I can pull some of these nice ultramarines down from here to here, though. So on the shadowed side, I can pull this down a little bit. Makes it pretty. And these are just small separate strokes of a lot of interesting color. So if I want to read across this a little bit, instead of using a black, which is going to flatten the piece, I can go ahead and use some of these, keep the values the same, pull some greens into that. That's fascinating. And as it's already got the horizontal stroke, I can come back with some verticals. And this is the finish up part of the painting. This is the stuff that I've spent all that underpainting, establishing all this stuff so that I can start to make this painting shimmer a little bit more. So if I've got these oranges and I've got that horizontal line, I can come back across and drop this in or drop it in here and work around the whole piece to make it interesting. I want that to pop a little more. So I'll take some of these colors and just pop them in behind there, clean this up a bit so we can read it. And look at this, this is fun. I can split this big tree into two just by putting a little light there and continue it across. Just if that's getting a little too much heavy tree, I can just pull that background sky. Since this is the color of the mountain, I can just pull it through and we'll see that as two trees. And this is where I'm beginning to articulate and make these verticals different sizes. And that's just to make, and this is like to taste. This is making this interesting. So I'll pull these greens in like that. And it's all this color that happens at the end that I've done all the layout, all this prep, all of these layers are established so I can come back now and just have fun. I can start to say, well, I like a little, let me put a little more color in here. Let me get stronger. I'm still keeping with pretty much my pure palette, but I'm using purer color and smaller strokes and just beginning to decorate this surface. And as this gets more decorative, isn't that pretty up in there? As this gets more decorative, I'm able to come back and pull little touches of those colors into the water. So I can come back and just real lightly, and I don't know if you noticed how it's almost like an afterthought stroke to just glow some of this color back down on top of that purple. As I'm building up this force, I'm able to come back, and I may not want to do it with one of these gray or flatter colors because it may not have that same sparkle. So, and you can see as that gets a little too articulated, it loses some of the pop. So I'll come back on top, put the purple back, and put it in a horizontal pattern so I can come back next week and drop back my verticals again. And now I'll get a little tired of that, so I'll come back up into the trees. And this is just so much fun for me. I mean, this is literally, I'll work 10 days so I can sit down and do this. Try to let some of it disappear, try to let, there things happen here that I just don't recognize, you know, as conscious thought. Things just sort of happen because I've either got extra paint on the brush, or I want to clean up my palette, start to play some color in here. And this is where I'll really work along this band of interest, because this is going to be really attractive enough anyway with that high contrast. So here where I've got a lot of contrast, I'm not having too much color. Here where there's not a lot of contrast is where I'm really popping up and putting in a lot of color. So I can come back across this. And just remember, if it's a warmer color, I want it on the left side where the sun is. If it's a cooler color, I want it on the right side. And I'll come back and start to play. I don't want to get too dark as I get up top, but I can certainly put a little color into here. And this is where you don't need to be too dark up against this sky. You can, any color will, the sky's the lightest color, so any color will silhouette dark against there. So I'll literally just play, soften out some of the intensity of these colors. And just finish that up. And this is, I'll do this for 4 hours, just decorate this painting, because the bulk of it is done. I've still got enough interest in the subject matter. That area is a little flat. I could probably, you know, get a little more contrast across this edge, but I can play with that later. I don't want to hurt the painting now. And then I'll just finish this up with the work in the water. And that's it.